And then February 13 at 1:04 in the morning, we have the Mars ingress into Aquarius. And then again, it's not until the following day, February 14, that Mars makes its exact conjunction to Pluto in Aquarius.
And it's Valentine's Day, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be a mess.
Yeah, exactly. So, what this means is really we're gonna have a few days where this archetype is predominant of Mars entering Aquarius and Mars with Pluto. So Mars alone going into Aquarius, it's much more volatile than Mars in Capricorn. Capricorn's an earth sign, and earth signs keep Mars just more grounded, more practical, more here and now. Mars in Aquarius, because Aquarius is very much like, I'm going to go my own way on my own time and do my own thing in a lot of ways. Mars really kind of maximizes that. It can be, it's not exactly scattered because it's still very powerful and it's very directed, but it's like, I'm going to go here, shift gears, I'm going to go here. It can be a little bit unpredictable. There is a little bit of volatility, and there's definitely an intensity to Mars in Capricorn and Mars in Aquarius. And Mars in Aquarius, it wants to do things differently, right? It's bringing out that kind of like new ingenuity, eccentricity side of Aquarius.
Peyton, do you do like the Chinese at all? Because what is it, the 9th? We're going into the year of the dragon? Or the 10th?
I don't do that actually with the animals, but I've been doing a feng shui astrology. It's slightly different. It's a 9 energy system that does reset at the beginning of February. Yeah, but
because it's going to be I think there'll be an energetic shift with that too. Dragon's a very different year than hare. See.
Yeah.
Almost the opposite.
Yeah.
It's like grandiose.
Yeah, sure. I mean, certainly, because I remember John was living here at this time last year, and I remember we talked about it at that time, right, beginning of February, and it was like there was definitely a shift. We were talking from this feng shui system, which is a 9 energy system, deals with the 5 elements and combinations of yin and yang. I think there's a shift too. I don't really know enough about either of these systems or I don't feel confident to make a prediction or say like it's gonna feel this kind of way. Yeah, I think you're right. There's definitely an energetic shift at the beginning of February.
Which day is it again? The 9th? 10th?
It might be, I know in the feng shui system it's on the 4th.
Oh, it's the year the dragon started?
No, this is in this feng shui system. So
okay.
The feng shui, this year is moving from, because it's different for males and females, for males from yin wood, which is the energy of the wind, to yang wood, which is the energy of thunder. And for females, shifting from yin earth, the energy of the field, or earth, to yang wood, the energy of thunder.
Okay. So it sounds like it'll start to be a time to speak out.
Yeah, definitely. Thunder is like the initiating force. It's the force of creating movement in the universe. So I think it's definitely going to be a lot of movement and a major growth time in that way. But that's kind of all I feel confident to say about that.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're at that Mars at the beginning of Aquarius, right? Mars Aquarius, more volatile. Mars with Pluto. This is like ego drives. Huge ego drive to the max, drive for power. And there can be an element of control, of wanting to control things with Mars, Pluto, So again, talking about Aquarius and like the cyber landscape, on a larger scale, this could be things like cyber attacks, targeting things through the internet. And then on a more personal level, Mars Aquarius, this is more, we could be just talking about playing out these certain things in a technological landscape, right? It's just kind of changing the landscape of where these things are happening. But the Mars-Pluto combinations are very much about ego drive, taking it to the max, wanting to achieve, wanting power. It's very power-driven. We also have, happening at this time, but I think it's going to be strongly overshadowed by the Mars thing. But we have on the 13th of February, Venus at 26 Capricorn forming a sextile to Neptune in Pisces, right? So this is another configuration of a sextile from something in Capricorn to Neptune in Pisces. Venus-Neptune is this is just beautiful, divine unification, pure love, right? Venus-Neptune is about pure love, really. Venus in Capricorn has that practical element, right? Again, Venus in Capricorn can have that kind of almost transactional side to it. You're giving me this, I'm giving you that, and this feels good, it feels right to do that. I think sextiling Neptune, it just kind of opens up or deepens that exchange to something that's more than just a business deal, There is more of that kind of unified side to it. The thing is, it's happening at the same time of this Mars with Pluto Aquarius, and I think the Mars-Pluto Aquarius is much stronger it's much stronger of an archetype, this is where you can look at some of the things, right? Judith having the sun at 28 Capricorn, John having Neptune at 25 Capricorn. So yeah, those Capricorn transits, right? The Venus Capricorn with Neptune, they're going to hit your natal planets. So you're going to feel them more strongly, But I think at the end of the day, when you're just looking at what's in the sky and what it feels like in the air and what it feels like around you, Mars-Pluto is going to be the predominant feeling. And then February 16 at 11:04 a.m., this is now the final ingress into Aquarius, Venus moving into Aquarius. Venus in Aquarius is much less traditional, it's much more unconventional in Aquarius as opposed to in Capricorn, right? Where in Capricorn it had that kind of business thing. Venus Aquarius is a little more, I'm just going to do it my way and I'm going to express myself my way, and I'm going to want to find myself in relationship to people who also do it their way, Venus Aquarius is not very romantic or lovey-dovey or lovey even, Venus Aquarius can be kind of cold and more about friendship. But Venus Aquarius has a side of alignment. There's an aspect of Aquarius that is about alignment and being around people who also want to do their own thing as you do, And Venus really brings that side of it out. And then same as with Mars, it's not until the following day, February 17, that Venus makes its exact conjunction to Pluto, right? So the middle of the month is really, really juicy, right? We're talking about February 13 when Mars enters Aquarius, and then the following day, the 14th, when Mars makes the exact conjunction to Pluto. And then, right, there's a day in the middle when that Mars-Pluto is still going to be at play. And then February 16, Venus comes into Aquarius. And now this becomes a more predominant archetype, right? Because that shift, the shift of Venus from Capricorn into Aquarius is going to there's something new here. And then the following day, February 17, you get the Venus conjunct Pluto, and then that's going to be a more predominant archetype. You know, it's interesting to see them next to each other because Mars and Venus are a pair, right? Mars assertion, Venus attraction. They are kind of equal and opposite almost, right? One is about, I'm going to do my thing my way, Mars, and Venus is, I would like to do it together with you. So we're going to really see this like 1-2 punch back to back, getting the Mars thing with Aquarius and with Pluto.
So Mars will still be close to 0 degrees Aquarius?
Yeah, it will. Yeah, Mars is, let's check that chart out real quick.
Well, they're really reciprocal. You can't really have one without the other. I mean, Mars goes out and gives and does, and Venus is done too, and waits and receives.
Mm-hmm.
So with anything that's given, there's got to be someone who's receiving.
Yeah, exactly.
So they're really two sides of a coin.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
It's about the movement of energy.
Yeah.
Where it is generated from, and where it lands, and what it does when it lands.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're very close. They're within a couple of degrees of each other, you know. So, you know, in a way, we're operating with this Mars-Venus conjunction too, right? So that pairing is really, it's very apparent, you know. Seeing both sides of them play out.
Yeah.
Seeing the give and the take of the two. So having the Venus in Aquarius with Pluto. Venus with Pluto is, again, there's the power side of it, but Venus Pluto is more about like gaining power through seduction. You know, drawing people close to you so that you have more control over them. You know, buttering people up so that you can manipulate them. This is more Venus Pluto, right? Where Mars Pluto is a little more strong arm. Don't make me get the flamethrower, right? Venus Pluto is a little more like, come on, it's okay.
You know you want to.
You know you want to. Exactly.
These are good for you.
Yeah, just gaslighting.
Perfect.
Persuasion, yeah.
Yo, exactly. And the other side of this Venus-Pluto is exploring the depths of relationship, right? Venus-Pluto can be about like going to those dark places together, right? Which this is a really huge bonding experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be negative, you know? It may be uncomfortable, but this is part of a bonding experience. So that's part of this Venus-Pluto combination as well. Yeah, and I made a little note here. So Venus made a square to Pluto. That was back in early December. So that was Venus at the end of Libra making a square to Pluto at the end of Capricorn. Only to note, because the squares, oppositions, and conjunctions are really major points of the cycle. So whatever was happening for you right around that time may come back up in a new form at this time.
What time?
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So that Venus square Pluto, this was like early December.
Early December.
Yeah, and that was Venus Libra squaring Pluto Capricorn. So now we're coming to the close. This is the conjunction point, right? Which is the end of one and beginning of the next cycle of Venus Pluto. You know, and this is something that's going to happen more or less once a year. It's a quick cycle. But this is a way that you can track it. You can kind of see what was going on around this time, right? And the closing square is like a dynamic action point. You know, something happened that caused a shift, or something happened that was a confirmation of what you were trying to do. And then coming to a close, there's sort of a tying up the loose ends, an integration of whatever was going on at that time, you know, sort of thing. So, you know, that's just a personal thing that you can look at those times for a little bit of influence on each other. During this Venus entering Aquarius, we also have Mercury at 19 Aquarius forming a square to Uranus in Taurus. This is a stronger aspect, and this I don't think will be quite overshadowed in the same way, you know, as the previous one with Mars, right? Because this is Mercury in Uranus's sign forming a square to Uranus, right? And Mercury in a sign that it does very well in. So these archetypes are more reinforcing each other. Mercury square Uranus is like volatile thought, moving too quickly. It's chaotic. It's all over the place, right? Because Mercury is just that quick analytical thought, and then Uranus is just bursting at the seams to just break down all the boundaries. It's eccentric. It wants to go everywhere, you know. But there's an aspect of this is that it's just like getting these brilliant ideas out of left field. You know, I see one possible manifestation of this, right? We have Venus conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, and then Mercury forming a square to Uranus. This is like going to your partner and being like, hey, what if we tried this? You know, that like wild idea that nobody's been saying, and that's the moment for it, you know? Mark your calendar.
And that happened which day? The 17th or 16th?
The Mercury square Uranus is on the 16th,
Okay.
which is the same day as Venus entering Aquarius.
Right.
And then the 17th is Venus conjunct Pluto.
Right.
Yeah. So, you know, and I think another just kind of larger scale thing that's interesting to look at, right? Mercury entered Aquarius in the beginning of the month. And then we have this back-to-back, Mars into Aquarius and Venus into Aquarius.
And one thing I wanted to note is that
February 18 at 11:12 p.m. Sun enters Pisces. So this is the beginning of Pisces season. Bit of a shift, you know. The sun is the thing that makes it light enough and warm enough for us to live here. It gives us that kind of conscious direction, that life force energy, you know. So the sun moving into a different sign is, you know, it shifts the feeling, and it shifts the feeling of the landscape, of nature around us, you know. Pisces is the final sign of the zodiac. So this is the last 30 days or so before the spring equinox when it resets. Pisces is really like the diffuse energy border. Pisces understands the unity of all things. Pisces is very inward, it's very observant. It really just kind of understands that everything has its place. It's not very expressive through itself. It's not, there is no self. There's only the all, the everything with Pisces, you know. So, sun entering Pisces just brings more of this kind of feeling. There's more of a restfulness before spring begins, you know. And then the following day, on the February 19, the sun at 0 degrees Pisces is making a semi-sextile to Pluto in Aquarius. So this is a 30-degree aspect. So that sun in Pisces, again, it's very sensitive, it's very emotional, it's very sedentary, it's very feeling. Pluto has this driving, forceful energy. When you have a semi-sextile, they're like unrelated in a way. you know, so it could feel like there are kind of two sides going on, you know, that you consciously feel that you want to do nothing. You want to just lay in bed and submit. And Pluto is like driving for something, you know, much more forceful. February 21st, Mercury at 26 degrees Aquarius forms a semi-sextile to Neptune in Pisces. Again, this is a semi-sextile, so it has these kind of like disconnected between the archetypes. This is where the rational thought of Mercury in Aquarius is kind of disrupted by hypersensitivity of Neptune. You know, this is kind of like spacing out into fantasy, being just getting a little lost. You know, the two things are not coming together in the way that they were at the beginning of the month, right? Where Mercury was making the sextile to Neptune. February 23rd, Venus at 9 Aquarius makes a semi-sextile to Saturn in Pisces. And this is kind of like an inability to receive affection. You know, that Venus Aquarius kind of wants to create some structure and relationship. It wants to create alignment. But Saturn in Pisces, the structure is unclear. It's kind of hard to perceive exactly what's happening, exactly what's going on. So unclear structures make it hard to align things, hard to create the harmony between things. And then also on that day, February 23rd, Mercury ingresses into Pisces. Mercury in Pisces, Mercury is in fall in Pisces, right? So fall means that the planet is, the archetype of the planet is not necessarily so well aligned with the archetype of the sign. Mercury is all about details, taking in information, facts, left brain, logic.
Good
night.
Have a good night.
Be
Thank
safe.
you so much for coming.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thank you for bringing the pie.
You're welcome.
Great to see you. Do you want your chart back?
If you want to keep it, you can. If you don't, I'm happy to take it back either way.
I want to. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Don't-
next time.
All right.
Yeah, cool. Sounds good. I'll talk to you soon.
Great.
Yeah, Mercury in fall in Pisces. When it's in fall, right, part of this is that the sign opposite that sign, right, so Virgo is opposite Pisces. Mercury in Virgo is exalted. Mercury works very well in Virgo. They're very aligned because Virgo is very detail oriented, you know. It's thoughtful, it's structured, you know. Pisces is unstructured. There's no structure to Pisces. There's no container. It's just like kind of this total nebulousness. So Mercury in Pisces is just like a little lost. You know, it's a little spaced out. It has a hard time thinking clearly, but it works very well in terms of thinking more emotionally, thinking more big picture, being more imaginative, you know. This is not a great time for like normal Mercury functions. This isn't a great time to balance your checkbook, but again, a great moment to like work on poetry or fantasy stories, you know, working up new artistic ideas, things like this. And then February 24th at 7:30 in the morning, this is our second lunation of the month. This is the full moon at 5 degrees Virgo. So we have the moon at 5 degrees Virgo and the sun at 5 degrees Pisces. So the full moon is like, this is more action, active, you know, right? The new moon is more inward, more of that kind of like reflection with yourself, check in with yourself. And then the full moon, right, this is the middle of the lunation cycle. What have you gotten to? What have you gotten to mentally and now you're beginning to express? outside of yourself. This is a lot what the new the full moon is about. You know. The full moon in Virgo is it is very analytical. It's very detail oriented. The axis of Virgo and Pisces is very much about the spectrum of like criticism and acceptance. So this full moon, there's a side of kind of being able to balance the two, right? You know, we're having a full moon in Virgo that then will be followed by a new moon in Pisces. So that's kind of like this thing of Virgo's criticism making this pathway to come back towards like a acceptance of the way that things are, you know. The sun also has Mercury and Saturn very close to it in Pisces, you know. So Mercury and Saturn are further amplifying this kind of like analytical, logical, critical, detail-oriented side of the archetypes. John, we gotta see where you have the sun exactly.
Oh, Virgo.
16. So the full moon is at 5, and you have the sun at 16. And so they're not really conjunct.
Yeah.
You know. But they're co-present. This is highlighted, you know. This is, right, the sun is going to be opposite sign that you have the sun in, and the moon is going to be where you have the sun. So this is almost like giving you a moment of seeing the other side,
mm-hmm.
you know, in that full moon. And then we have as well on February 24th, same day, Venus at 10 degrees Aquarius squaring Jupiter in Taurus. So Venus Jupiter can be more overindulgent, you know. Jupiter is close to forming a sextile with Saturn, which this is a longer term aspect, the Jupiter-Saturn sextile. This offers more structure, you know. There's a Jupiter sextile Saturn, there's a really good balance between the principles of expansion and growing and the principle of contraction and limit and structure, you know. So having that relationship, it doesn't make it too out of control, but Venus square Jupiter is more overindulgent. This is like, you know, wanting to eat too much, wanting to drink too much, wanting to eat the whole cake at one time, right? This is the aspect of it. There's a side of like comfort and complacency, especially with Jupiter and Taurus. Jupiter and Taurus really likes to be comfortable, you know. It'll be interesting to see that on the same day as this full moon in Virgo, right? So I can see this coming out as like Venus square Jupiter, I want to eat the whole cake, and the full moon in Virgo says, you know, it's like totally critical, it tears you down for like making such a ridiculous, superfluous, and overindulgent choice.
How dare you? No.
How dare you do that?
No good.
Yeah, exactly. You know. February 25th, we have now Mars at 9 degrees Aquarius forming a semi-sextile to Saturn and Pisces, right? So now we're kind of getting these hits of the planets in Aquarius forming a semi-sextile to Saturn in Pisces, you know. So Mars there is like kind of unable to forge ahead. You know, the rules and the structure of engagement, they feel unclear from Saturn and Pisces. So, you know, in that volatile Mars and Aquarius, it kind of doesn't know which way to turn. It's a little bit of this, you know. all of this is still against the backdrop of Mars conjunct Venus in early Aquarius, right? So we were talking about this earlier. There's that kind of push-pull of assertion and attraction. Mars and Venus are going to moderate each other a little bit. But forming a semi-sextile to Saturn, there's going to be just something that feels severely limited or severely unexpressed, you know, by having Saturn form a semi-sextile to these two planets. Then on February 27, Mars at 10 degrees Aquarius is squaring Jupiter in Taurus. This is a much more energetic aspect. Jupiter squaring Mars brings a lot of intensity to Mars. Mars is already in this volatile sign placement. Jupiter is just going to kind of blow it out of proportion. It's going to be too much, too fast, all at once. You know, is kind of Mercury square Mars here. Going overboard and not knowing when to stop with whatever you're doing, you know. So, and we're still, you know, we're coming out, what, 10 days, maybe 14 days from that Mars conjunct Pluto in Aquarius, which is so forceful and driving, you know. So now we're kind of getting another hit of like overboard Mars, you know. And then the following day, February 28th, so we're coming to the end of the month, and this is when we have that Sun, Mercury, Saturn triple conjunction in Pisces. This is a bigger aspect, so we're going to feel its sphere of influence over, you know, a few days leading up to it, a few days following it. Sun with Mercury is very quick. It likes to move around quickly. It likes to put its focus here, put its focus here, put its focus here. Whatever it's doing, it wants to think about it a lot. It likes to work with its hands. And Saturn's giving a lot of structure to that. Generally, these three planets together are going to be very, very structured, very oriented towards like craftsmanship sort of things, working with your hands. However, it's in Pisces. Pisces kind of negates all of those things in a way. Pisces is so opposite to that, you know. So there's not a lot of structure coming to it from the sign. With Pisces, when you have structured things in Pisces, it ends up being more about like kind of getting into the imaginative realm, you know, and really being able to work well there, you know, being able to work in a more structured way with something that's very creative, or something that's very fantastical or imaginative, something like that, you know. Sun Saturn combination really reduces that kind of like internal fire and that drive, and in Pisces it makes it very observant, you know. So, you know, and Mercury is going to focus on the details. This is more of like a kind of sit back, relax, go more inward, but you'll have a lot of power to do that, you know, and a lot of structure and a lot of direction to do that. And then the final day of the month, February 29, Mercury at 10 degrees Pisces forms a sextile to Jupiter at 10 degrees Taurus. So again, the Mercury-Jupiter combinations, it has that thing of being able to like see the details and then zoom out and see the whole and zoom back in and see the details. And the sextile gives an opportunity to bring the two. Sextiles take a little bit of work to bring the two archetypes together, you know. Mercury, you know, it struggles a little bit in Pisces, but it's also in Pisces, which is ruled by Jupiter, and it's forming an aspect to Jupiter. So in this moment, there will be more focus on the whole, details. The details maybe a little bit unclear, but the whole will make so much sense in this particular alignment. You know, that you'll be kind of like fill in the details with that. And that's February.
That's amazing.
All right, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
Yeah.